Tonight's shiur is called Magical Mezuza. Did he? No, not to my knowledge. Not to my knowledge, but he was a great tzaddik, reviewed that tzadka. Today is Rosh Yeshiva Porat Yosef. It's no small thing. It was a big Talmid Hacham. Today's shiur is called Magical Mezuza. In this week's parasha, we read about the Vahayim Shamoah, the second paragraph of Shema, and there, amongst other things, it speaks about the mezuzah. Small and humble, yet powerful and protective. What is the power of mezuzah? What is the power of mezuzah? Why is it so special and so unique? The Torah commands us in two places. In Parashat Va'etchanan, where it says, just in the beginning of Shishi, the sixth portion, in chapter 7, verse 4. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha, b'chol nafshecha, b'chol modecha. And the famous verses of you should love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your might. And towards the end it says, Uchtavtam al mezuzot betecha uvisharecha, and you shall write them and affix them upon your doorposts and your gates. That's one place. And in the second place is in this week's parasha, in Parashat Ekev, where it says, also interestingly enough in the portion of Shishi, V'haya im shamoa el mitzvotai asher anuchi metzaveh etchem hayom, the second portion of the Shema, and there again it says, Uchtavtam al mezuzot betecha uvisharecha, you shall write them and affix them upon the doorposts of your homes and your gates. So from here we understand that what do we need to write? What do we fix them? We fix this parasha. The two portions that speak about the mezuzah is the two portions that are included in the mezuzah. That's how we know what portions. Shema, Ve'ahavta, and Vahayim Shamoah. Basically the two portions, the two paragraphs of Shema are included in the mezuzah. And it's on your gates. On your gates. So where do we put it on the doorpost? Where do we put it? On the right, on the left, on top, maybe on the lintel. Maybe that would be very convenient for some people. You know, some people put the mezuzah, the top right-hand corner. You know, God forbid that anybody should even reach it, let alone kiss it or who knows what. Has to be a third of the way down, has to be around your shoulder height. You have to look at it, you have to see it, you have to be proud of it, you have to kiss it. When you walk in, when you walk out. But which side? Where do we put it? Where exactly on the door do we put it? So we put it on the right hand, and the Gemara learns it from the pasuk, Uchtavtam an mezuzot betecha, and you shall write them on the doorposts of your house. And in other words, affix it, write it and affix it on the doorpost of your house. And the Gemara in Menachot, Aflamed Dalet, teaches us, V'darshu betecha derech bi'atcha, and the fact that it says, Betecha your home, they extrapolate from that, bi'atcha, the way that you enter. How does a person always enter? A person always enters using his right foot goes in first. Person, by nature, seemingly, moves his right foot first. That is the way you enter. You move with your right foot. Interesting phenomenon. Since that, there's other reasons on the right, of course, but the Gemara learns from that. What is the power of this mitzvah? What is the purpose of this mitzvah? What is the protective nature of this mitzvah that we know has great mystical and protective powers? even though that Maimonides writes clearly that the reason why we keep this mitzvah is because the Almighty has commanded us to fulfill the mitzvah. That's the ultimate goal, the ultimate purpose, the ultimate reason of any mitzvah. We don't do mitzvot for amulets and for different types of superstitions or different types of protections or different bakshish, different types of benefits. We keep the mitzvah simply because God commanded us. God is the creator of heaven and earth, and we are His subjects, and we fulfill His will. And there is no greater capacity for a human being to cleave to God than through His Torah and His mitzvot, His commandments, as the very word mitzvah lends itself to the word tzavta, or shares the same root as the word tzavta, which means to connect, to attach. So every mitzvah attaches us to God. We don't fulfill the mitzvot because they have some sort of magic. But nonetheless, having said that, this mitzvah particularly has unbelievably protective powers, as we will soon see. First of all, let's see a little bit what is the definition of this mitzvah itself. What is the purpose of this mitzvah? So Maimonides, the great scholar Maimonides, writes very interesting as follows. Hayav Adam lizaher b'mezuzah. A person is obligated to be extremely cautious with mezuzah, with the commandment of mezuzah, to be able to put up mezuzah on every doorpost. Every doorpost, not just at the front door, not just at the back door, not just at the bedroom, not just at the room where you keep your safe. Yes, I know that one. Every place, every gateway, you have to have every entrance that has the conditions, as we will soon see later on. Also Maimonides, the 10 conditions that we need from mezuzah. And we have to make sure that the mezuzah are kosher, not these little scrawny, skimpy ones. And better even to buy the good quality, nice ones. Make sure you have it in the right place, the right position, etc. So Maimonides writes, "V'chol zman shikanes ve'yetzeh yifga b'yehud Hashem shemo shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu." He will then encounter every single time that he enters and every single time that he exits this entry, he will encounter the name of God, blessed be He. This is a reminder. It's a reminder call. And it's significantly a reminder call where? Why can't we wear, big Magen David? These people who have the big Magen David, they've got their shirts opening to their belly buttons, and they got the big Magen David. Proud Jew. Good on him. Proud Jew. Or these people have a nice high. And today you even have small amulet token mezuzah as well. You ever saw these little, they sell you the little car mezuzah? The little one you stick on? If you're going to have a mezuzah in the car, have a real mezuzah. Don't have this little micro mezuzah. Like a picture of a picture of a picture. Just have it in the USB and that's it, finished. So, akopanim. So, why don't we carry the reminder with us? We have tzitzit, very good. And we discussed that on previous shurim. Why on our doorposts? Very significant. It's a place where we live. It's a place where we do our activities. It's a place very important, very holy, very special place, the house. It's a place where we come from outside with all of the influences of the outside and come in. Oh, when you come from the outside with all of the influences that the outside world has, all of the attractions and all of the distractions, good place before you come into your holy house, where you have a family, where you have a home. Remind yourself of God, blessed be Him. Remind yourself of your connection to Him, of your obligation to Him. Leave some of the shtuyot. Leave some. Leave it all. But if you can't better leave it all, at least leave some. Have a reminder. Look at the mezuzah. Remind you. Oh, Baruch Hashem, I'm coming to a Jewish home. My home. I should leave some of the nonsense out. You're about to go outside your home. Your home where you keep the Shabbat, where you light the Shabbat candles, where you tell your children beautiful stories of Tanakh, of the Tzaddikim, where you study Torah from time to time, hopefully every day, where you keep mitzvot, where you make Kiddush, have Shabbat table, where people come to your door, they're welcome in your house, whether they need a place to rest, whether they need a place to eat, whether they need a place to sleep. Sometimes people need a place to sleep. They come from overseas, they need a place to sleep. Whether they need a donation, they're welcome in your house. Not like those people who put a big sign, beware of dog. They don't have a dog, but they put up beware of dog in case anybody will want to come in. Warning. And if that didn't work and the guy still had guts, he knocks on the door, now you got these cameras. Before you knock on the door, they had big wooden thing you couldn't even see. Then they created the hole. So you can look at the hole, but the guy is looking on the other side, so he can avoid you. So you have no choice, open the door. Or he sticks his finger on the hole. Now, they've solved that as well. Because, unwelcome guests, we want our privacy, so we have now cameras. I don't have a camera. But you have the cameras. Now you can have a look. You turn it on, the guy buzzes, the guy flicks the thing, and as soon as you press something, he knows you're there. So they had to solve that problem as well. So what did they do? Now when he buzzes, automatically the camera comes on. So you don't even have to give any indication that there's life in the house. So the mezuzah reminds us that this is a home where the mitzvot of Hashem are welcome. God is a welcome landlord, not a guest, not a tenant that he has to pay us rent. Wouldn't mind if he helps us with a mortgage, but he's welcome. He's the landlord. Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the landlord, blessed be He. And when we walk out, we remind ourselves, hey, I need to fortify myself. All of the things that I remember, all of the principles that I want to build my life, show my kids, tell my kids, teach my kids. I'm going to have to apply it where I go to work, where I go on the street. I'm going to have to fortify myself. So the Maimonides tells us an important principle, what this mezuzah is all about, attachment to God, a reminder in the most sacred place, the entryway. But there is also something about the entryway, which we will get to speak about a little bit later. Let us continue first with Maimonides. V'yizkor ahavato, and he will remember his love to God. V'yer mishinato v'shgiotav behevlei hazman, and he will arouse himself from his slumber and from his errors and from the vanity of the times. V'yeda she'en davar ha'omed la'olam u'la'olmei olamim, and there is nothing that endures the test of time, ela yediyat sur ha'olam, but the knowledge. And when we say the knowledge, it means an attachment. Ladat means when you know, it becomes a part of you, part of your psyche, to know the rock of the world, the foundation of the world, the strength of the world. God, blessed be He. Meaning to say, that understand, what are we chasing? What are we chasing? What are we chasing? Things that are fleeting. It's amazing how we waste our lives, our precious moments and precious years, our health, our time with our families, our time that we can invest in our spirituality that endures forever, our neshama. We invest it on shtuyot, on nonsense. And we so easily squander that time with the phones that we have, with the internet and the this and that, go to the news, go to this, go to that. It's as if we make any difference. Can we make any difference? By knowing all the details of Obama's speech. I can make a bigger difference by coming to a shiur. I can make a bigger difference by saying Tehillim. So Maimonides tells us, the Mezuzah, you know what it reminds us of? It reminds us of endurance. What endures? The principles, our morals, our belief in God, our faith in God, our attachment to Him, His commandments, His will, His Torah. That endures. Remember that. So when we're about to walk out of our home, remember what's important. Don't forget. When you're coming back home, remember what's important. Remember the importance of your family. Remember that everything you went is only secondary. You just came from work. Secondary. Leave it outside. And remember that the Almighty runs the world, and trust in Him. Immediately this reminder jolts him back to his former understanding and conclusions of what life is all about. And he goes in the path of the upright. So the mezuzah is a reminder for us. Amru Hachamim Harishonim, the early sages have said, Kol mi sheyesh lo tefillin berosho ubezro, whoever has tefillin on his head and on his on his arm, v'tzitzit bevigdo, and tzitzit on his garments, the tassels that we wear, umezuzah bepitho, and mezuzah on his entrance, muhzaku shelo yeheta. If a person is cognizant of those reminders and messages and what they represent, the tefillin on the head, that we subjugate our mind, our thoughts, our highest point as a human being to God. We meditate upon God. The tefillin is a reminder that our thoughts must be directed towards higher and nobler things. On our hand, corresponding to our heart, that our emotions can be ones not just plain human being or that of an animal, can be something that is sublime, something that is holy, something that is precious. And we translate it into the world of action. That's why we put it on our head. And then the garments, that which is most external to us, we put the tassels, the tzitzit on it, reminding us that everything that is external also must be bound, unified, and related to godliness. We should not become so attracted to the physical, material facade of things that it so leads us astray. And other intentions of the tzitzit that we discussed on previous shurim. Maimonides says if a person is mindful of those things and the mezuzah on the door, such a person will not err, will not sin. Sharayesh lo maskirim rabim, for he has many reminders. You know, you have people who have work, who have businesses. They have a secretary. One of the functions of the secretary is to remind them of appointments. I consider myself God's secretary. I remind people of their appointments with God. To put on tefillin, you have an appointment. Hello, Mr. Abdullah. You have an appointment with God. You have to put on your tefillin. Don't forget in the morning don't forget Shabbat, you have an appointment with God. Don't forget these appointments. I'm God's secretary. Inshallah, I'll do a good job. Well, then you better pay me right then. And they are the angels that we create. They are the positive energy that somehow protects us. I don't know whether you believe in this, but there must be you must have been in a situation in your life where you must have been at a low ebb or at a crucial juncture or at a vulnerable point in your life, spiritually or emotionally, where you could have easily faltered or fallen in despair or what do you call it, the depression, or God forbid, lose your faith. God forbid, turn your back on God. It's like, I'm sure it's happened to you. I think about this often. You know, sometimes you reverse and, you know, you look the other way or you look this way and bang, easily, it could have been a crash. Easily. Hashem saved you in a second. And quite often it's not your fault, or it's someone else's fault. So whatever it is, you just turn this way, turn that way. Whatever it is. So easily, how many times have we avoided a collision or a crash, or someone hitting us, or us hitting someone else, or reversing to this or reversing to that? Many times. What are the angels are protecting us? Well, what is it? How many times in our lives have we been at a moment that we were so vulnerable that we could have easily sinned or erred? It must have been some aura that protected us. What are they? They are the tefillin, mezuzah. They are the tzitzit. They are the mitzvot that we do. This positive energy or aura that Maimonides calls the malachim, the angels. What are the angels? Angels is a spiritual entity that we create, or that God appoints on our behalf. It is spiritual energy. We create that spiritual energy. Just like, God forbid, we create negative energy, as we will hopefully have the time for soon. Shneeman, and he quotes the Tehillim, Hone malach Hashem saviv lireya v'yachaletzem. God packs his angels around those who love him. Those who fear him, and he releases them. So the Shema and the V'hayim Shamoah, and the order is important, because first we say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Shem Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one, and we write this on the mezuzah. Ve'ahavta, should love the Lord your God. V'hayim Shamoah, and you shall hearken. When you will hearken to Hashem, He will reward you the rains, etc., in the right time. That order is crucial, because the Gemara Masechet Brachot tells us, Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Korha. Rabbi Yeshua ben Korha said, Lama kadma parashat Shema lev'hayim shamoah. Why is that order in fact like that? The Shema, v'ahavta, and then v'hayim shamoah, as we quoted before. כדי שקבל עליו עול מלכות שמיים תחילה, ואחר כך מקבל עליו עול מצוות. First of all, a person has to accept upon himself the yoke of God, the sovereignty of God, that there is a God. And you have to meditate. Shema means heed, means meditate. Means think about it, heed and meditate. The Lord is our God, the Lord is one. It's not just, we don't just say words. You've got to meditate. Shema, what does it mean, Shema Yisrael? Have you ever thought about it? Shema Yisrael, Hear, O Israel. What are we saying? Hear, O Israel. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is our... Who are we talking to? Who are we talking to? I'm talking to myself. Hey, cover your eyes for a moment. Distance yourself. Close your eyes. Don't look at the facade of the world. And heed, remember we spoke about the sense of hearing is the highest sense. It allows us to lehafnim, how do you say lehafnim? To take things inside of us. To internalize, thank you, to internalize things. Internalize the declaration that you're saying, that the Lord is our God, the Lord is one, the sovereignty of God. When you properly believe in God and recognize the sovereignty of God, then and only then can you accept His commands. So the Shema reminds us that there is a God. And the Shema reminds us that He's commanded us and given us obligations. And that these are obligations for our benefit. And when we surround ourselves with these mitzvot, of course we are attaching ourselves to God. Of course we are doing the will of God, which is the ultimate purpose of every mitzvah. But we are causing positive energy to be around us that protects us. Protects us from making bad mistakes, bad decisions that lead us to the frivolous lifestyle of this world, God forbid, that may lead us. Making errors that distract us from that which is eternal. The sages tell us every single time. So when is the obligation of mezuzah? When does it apply the obligation of mezuzah. The obligation of mezuzah applies when we move into a house, we rent a house, you come to live there, you put on the mezuzah, right? You make a bracha. You make it once or you make it every single day? When you walk in, when you walk out? You make it only once, right? When you put it up, you make it, right? Because you do not make a bracha. Kol mitzvah she'en ba ma'aseh en mevarchim aleha, as the Rashba writes, one of the great early authorities writes, that any mitzvah that has no deed, has no action, you do not bless. For example, we're commanded to have feelings of love of God, to develop feelings of love of God, to meditate and understand the greatness and loftiness of God and His kindness and abundance towards us, and then develop a love of God. These are one of the mitzvot that are continual. The love of God, the awe of God, the respect of God. They're continual mitzvot. You can fulfill it every single second of the day. We don't make a bracha on it. One of the reasons why we do not make a bracha on it is because it has no tangible action. That we said that you have commanded us concerning this tangible thing. That's one of the rules of brachot. But most certainly, even though we're only making the bracha on the mezuzah one time, the first time when we put it on, don't think for 1 second that mitzvah was only then. Because as we mentioned, according to Maimonides, the mitzvah and its purpose is fulfilled every single time you pass by that mezuzah and you are cognizant of what it represents, what its message is. It's not just like an insurance policy that you come, you sign it, you sign the document, that's it, I signed it. I signed the document, I put it on my door, that's it. Insurance policy is up. And from time to time you take it to a sofer to see whether it's valid. And if there's some letters rubbed out, the contract rubbed out, you need to then revalidate it and repay, of course. You don't have to kiss the mezuzah. You don't have to kiss it, you should look at it. And many have the custom to touch it and to kiss it. You don't have to kiss it. This occurs every single moment that you look at the mezuzah. This mitzvah, what it represents, can occur every single moment. And we should be cognizant of that every single time we pass the mezuzah, and teach and train our children to be cognizant of that. Kiss the mezuzah, lift them up, let them kiss it, let them pump. One time there was a rabbi who came to I think it was a Hafetz Haim, but I can't recall now. I am getting a bit older. Let's say Lahaim to that, Haim Tovim. And he came to be tested. He came in, the rabbi tested him, he did very well in the test. The rabbi asked him to go out for a moment. And he said, come back in a couple of minutes. Come back in. The rabbi asked him another couple of questions. He says, can you please go out and just let me ponder and come back in a couple of minutes? Came back a couple of minutes. He said, I'm not going to give you the ordination. He said, why not? I did well in the test. I answered the question. He said, yes, you did. But when you walk in, you failed to kiss the mezuzah. I thought maybe it's an oversight. It happens, forget, maybe you were nervous, you had many things on your head. So I asked you to go out. I asked you to go out, come in, I'll go out, come in. Every single time you went out, come in. You didn't kiss the mezuzah. You didn't look at the mezuzah. You didn't touch the mezuzah. That's not a good sign for me. I'm not giving you an ordination. Look at that. Look how sensitive he was to something of this nature. It's not a simple thing, the mezuzah. Powerful. We've got to train our children to understand what it reminds us. And when you're cognizant of that, that is the greatest defense mechanism that we can have. Teaching what it represents. Teaching him the master of the world. Allegiance to him, love towards him, and towards his commandments. However, having said all of this, writes the Tur is Rabbi Yaakov ben Asher. He wrote a compendium of halakha, one of the early authorities. He was the son of the Rosh, Rabbeinu Asher. Rabbeinu Asher was from the Rishonim. He, in fact, came from Europe Rabbeinu Asher, but he actually settled in Spain. He had to flee. Fortunately, Jews had to run away for different reasons. He was reported to the government for some reason or other, some false accusation, as unfortunately has been throughout history, and he ran away to Spain. When he came to Spain, he was recognized as one of the greatest scholars, and he was appointed their rabbi. So you have an Ashkenazi rabbi in a Sephardi community, Rabbeinu Asher. His grandson, Rabbi Yehuda Neched Arosh, and my great ancestor, Israel El Nekave, which was also a Rishon, they were both killed together in 1395 in the Almohads when they came before the Spanish Inquisition. 100 years before the Spanish Inquisition, the Jews in Spain already had trouble with the Muslims. They were trying to take over the Christians and backwards and forwards. And you had the Almohads there, and they caused a lot of problems. And in fact, my ancestor was killed together with Rabbeinu Asher's grandson. So Rabbeinu Asher's son was Rabbi Yaakov. Rabbi Yaakov wrote something called the Tur, Compodium of Halacha, and he writes very interesting. V'chol hazahir ba, whoever is very cautious and careful about the mezuzah, ya'arichu yamav v'yimei banav. They will lengthen in heaven, they will lengthen his years and the years of his children. Dichtiv, because it says in the verse, Lema'an yirbu yimechem v'yimei benechem. Right after it speaks about the mezuzah, what does it say? In order that your days and the days of your children will be lengthened. V'im enu zahir ba yitkatzru. God forbid. I don't even want to say. If he's not careful with the mezuzah, putting in the right place, putting a mezuzah every place, every doorway, God forbid, the exact opposite can occur. We have to understand there are many people who don't have mezuzah live very long lives. Short, long life is not just only in reference to years, but it's also in reference of value, purpose, spirituality. A person can live many years but really be dead inside, really be dead spiritually, and his shell, meaning to say the basic life form, meaning to say the animation, the ability to be animated, but he's dead inside. How many people you see have no life? Ugh. All these stars and all of these, you hear about all of these people, the lifestyle that they lead is so empty and void and so full of nonsense and vanity and frivolity. It's so empty, it's so nothing. Yuck. Yuck, it's just empty. And unfortunately there are people, and Jewish people I know, who want to lead this lifestyle of emptiness, of doing nothing, of having no purpose, of taking care of their body, of going to the gym backwards and forwards, of looking good and the latest fashion and the this and the that, and they neglect their children, they neglect their husbands, or vice versa. The husbands neglect the wives and their children and whatever it is, because they're chasing the dollar, or they're chasing the this, or they're chasing a lifestyle that is empty and void and offers us nothing and has no endurance, no enduring value. So a person can be alive, but in fact really be dead. Be dead inside. Miserable. We fill our lives with other emptiness. And he explains that obviously from the fact that the Torah tells us that your days will be, from the positive you understand what the negative could be. If you understand that the positive reward is lengthening of years, then you can understand what, God forbid, the negative is. And he says, V'chen darshu hachamim, and he quotes the Gemara Masechet Shabbat, page 32, and he says, Be'avon mezuzah banav u'benotav metim ktanim. God forbid, with the sin of mezuzah, or lack of proper respect and fulfillment of the mezuzah, his children, his daughters, and his sons, God forbid, pass away when they are small. And as I mentioned, the reference of alive or dead is not only in reference to physical life, it's also spiritual life. How many people we see that their children, they just have no understanding, no sensitivity to spirituality whatsoever. You just speak to them, are you speaking Chinese? You're speaking to them about Shabbat, you're speaking about Kasher, you're speaking about Tefillin, you're speaking about Yom Kippur, you're speaking about holiness, about spirituality, about the soul and the Shema. You're speaking Chinese. To be sure, every single Jew has a soul, a holy soul that is pure, that it's attached to God, but there's sometimes so many layers that we have to, like the onion, you have to peel. Have you ever had you like the onions? The onion, it's very annoying. One time, my wife is overseas now, so I'm doing a bit of cooking here, and I'm cooking. What's cooking? Taking out of the freezer and putting it in the pot or putting it in the oven. But you have to, do the potato. Yesterday I was going to do mashed potatoes with the meat. Of course, I burned the potatoes because someone called me and asked me a question, and I totally forgot. And there was a smell in the house, and then I had to open all the doors, and it was freezing yesterday, but I had no choice. Anyway, so what did I do instead of the potatoes? I did rice. So, the onion. I forgot. Back to the onion. The onion, so one time I cut the onion, and I forgot to peel a little bit. Very annoying. Yeah. You don't enjoy what the onion has inside to offer. We have such beautiful things, us and our children have so many beautiful things inside to offer. But we don't get to enjoy it because we place so many peels. So according to the Tur, Rabbi Yaakov Ben Harosh, we lay these peels, these onion peels. I was tempted to buy the onion rings, by the way, for my kids, but in Krinsky's, but I said, fry them, and then you have to clean the pan, and wow. Rice, shove it in the microwave. Now you're laughing. I made schnitzels tonight. And noodles. Freezer. No, the noodles I made from scratch. Hey? Be proud of me. Put the turmeric, Anyway, let's learn Torah. So what I'm trying to say is that we are so full. Sometimes we speak to people and I can speak to myself on my own level. All right, so Baruch Hashem, I was brought up with Torah, I was brought up with mitzvot. So that fortified me. That protects me to a certain degree. And then there's my own weaknesses, and I have to work on myself that I haven't yet been fortified. So another mitzvah, so another learning, so another meditating, so another concentrating in my prayers, that fortifies me and strengthens me again and takes away the peels. So I can feel more attached, feel closer to Hashem. God forbid, if I'm a little bit weakened, or I'm not concentrating my prayers, or if I'm, thank you. Or I'm not studying enough, or whatever the case may be, whatever weaknesses that I have, then I'm adding other peels. And if they stick along long enough, then the peel becomes coarse and hard and brown. Not pleasant. Harder to peel off. Nice, small little peel. Banana, very easy to peel. What about a watermelon? Hard to peel. We don't want to have peels like a watermelon. Banana, easy, get rid of it. Hasn't become not hard, not difficult to take off. This is what, ladies and gentlemen, what the Mezuza does. It fortifies us. It sensitizes our children to Torah and to mitzvot. If all we feed our children is money, and this and that, don't give charity, and don't give this, and don't do that, and keep it to yourself, and what are we telling him? Or if there's mitzvah, we skimp. We don't need it. We buy the cheapest. What messages are we telling them? But what message are you telling them when you buy beautiful, nice mezuzah and they see it? And what message are you telling them and yourself when you kiss the mezuzah, when you go in and go out and meditate upon what we said that we have to think about? What messages are we doing? How many things are we peeling away in order for the goodness that they have inside to shine forth? Let us continue. Now, having said that, and all of the wondrous things that Mezuzah reminds us, it actually does protect us. It protects us not only physically, spiritually, but also physically as well. We have, in fact, two places in the two portions of the Mezuzah where it speaks about Mezuzah, right? The Shema and the Vahayim Shamoah, right? The two chapters, right? One in Parashat Beit Hanan, one in Parashat Ekev, one in last week's portion, one in this week's portion. You will notice a very interesting thing. We won't have the time to explain the second half, but let's at least understand that in the first portion, Mezuzot is written without a Vav. The second portion, without two Vavs, rather. It's a Shuruk. So it's Mezuzot without a Vav. Because could have easily put a Vav there like Mezuzot, over here, the second. And in the second portion, it's spelled full. Mezuzot with two Vavs. Mezuzot. Here is Mezuzot, without the first Vav. So that is missing the first Vav. We will identify why in the first portion it's missing a Vav, and in the second portion has that extra Vav. And what exactly is this? If you have a look at the word Mezuzah, says the holy Shelah HaKadosh, and he also quotes the words of the Rikanti, also one of the Rishonim. And he says as follows. If you have a look at the word Mezuzot, you can extrapolate from there. You can take out from there two words. Zaz, removal, mavet, of death. The power of Mezuzah is that it can remove death from your home. Both physical and spiritual. Notice that you only get that when there's only one Vav. So we have to ask, why does the second portion have two Vavs then? Well, you have there also Zaz Mavet plus an extra Vav. Zaz Mavet. What? Yeah. Zaz Mavet. Mezuzot, the second portion, there's two. So Zaz, Mavet, removal of death, and an extra Vav. Why? We'll soon see. So the Shelah HaKadosh writes that is the power of Mezuzah. The power of Mezuzah has the ability to protect us physically, us and our children, as it clearly says, as the Tur quotes the Pasuk. L'ma'an yarichun yameh. Excuse me. In order that your days will be lengthened. But it also, according to Maimonides, spiritually, we don't want to succumb to the vanity of this world and to forget that which is enduring. We don't want to live a temporal, physical existence that has no meaning, that has no value, that doesn't endure. So there are multi-dimensions to the removal of death. What is death? What is the definition of death? The lack of life. How did death come about, come to being? You remember? Those who were in the early Shiurim remember that when Hashem created the world, man was to live eternally. Only when he ate from the tree of knowledge of good and bad, there's no choice, you have to die. Because once the consciousness of bad, once the psyche of negativity becomes a part of you, then you cannot endure. You cannot live forever. When man was created pure, he didn't have evil, he didn't have bad. He can endure. Once he ate from the tree of knowledge of good and bad, it wasn't like as much as a punishment as a consequence. Oh, you're going to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and bad, you're going to die. Was it so bad? It's a consequence. Why is it a consequence? Because bad doesn't endure. It's only there as a means to a goal. Soon as you achieve that goal, meaning to say you rectify and fulfill the world, and the world will reach the messianic stage, then there is no longer any reason and purpose for the challenges of evil or negativity, correct? So it's removed. So in other words, bad or negativity doesn't endure. Anything that does not endure means dies, death, right? Spirituality endures. That's why the soul that has no bad to it endures forever. The body that through that sin contained now both good and bad cannot endure. So what is death? What is the removal of death? In the first instance, removing the very cause, the condition of death. What is that? Impurity. The lack of spirituality, as defined by Maimonides. What the function of mezuzah is. So it's not an amulet. It's a mitzvah that conditions us to remove the very cause of death, which is impurity. You meditate on that, you are aligning yourself with the point and purpose of creation, and you are aligning the whole world to the fulfillment of creation. Listen to what the Rikanti writes. You shall write them and affix them on your doorpost of your houses and of your gates. The reason for this mitzvah, according to its simple and known reason, there are many of course, hidden and deeper reasons, in order that you will remember your Creator, when He enters and when He leaves. However, on a deeper level, המזוזה רמז לכנסת ישראל של מעלה. The mezuzah hints and reminds us of who the Jewish nation, where they're rooted in heaven. Their spiritual counterpart, their spiritual source, how they're always attached to God, they're always attached to life. Hashchina Kedosha, the divine presence. The divine presence is the source of our souls. Ubikvi'uta hi bepithe she'arim, and when you affix the mezuzah in the opening of your gates, biyota lapetah, and it is on the entrance and the opening. Kol mine mashchitu mazikim borchim mipaneha. All, what's an entry? Anything can enter, right? Good and bad. There's a lot of negative vibes, a lot of negative energy, God forbid. It could also enter when you come in. But when you're cognizant of this, that mezuzah protects you from the negative vibes, from the negative energy. And it allows only the good to enter with you, not the bad to enter with you. וזה רמז במילה מזוזות שאותיותיו זז מוות. And this is hinted in the very word of mezuzah, means zaz mavet, to remove death. What does it mean to remove death? To remove the condition of death. If we attach ourselves to our source, we are attach ourselves to the source of life. If we attach ourselves to the impurity of the world, we attach ourselves to the source of death, of impurity. Why is a child that is born pure and a dead person dead? Because impure? Because he's no longer alive. And when you're no longer alive, impurity attaches itself to the corpse. Life, vitality, is rooted in goodness. In spirituality, there's no impurity. There's no impurity there. There's no death there. Death and impurity are hand in hand. Where there is death, there is impurity. Can't touch the body. Become impure. Kohen is not allowed to go in to a home even, let alone touch the corpse. We will continue next week, Bezrat Hashem. No, I'm sorry, not next week. Next week there cannot be a shiur. So we'll stop here. And we will continue in 2 weeks' time.